As a startup founder, I'm developing and building an app on AWS. So give me some of the best practices for doing so to build a secure product.
Right. So I think without tying it to a specific cloud, right, like AWS, there are a few fundamental things that you need to take care of to make sure that your application is secure, right? So at a higher level, there are a few things, right? So I'll go into each of these in detail, but identity and access management, encryption, threat monitoring and response, data privacy and compliance, automated security testing, right? So these are some of the major things that you need to take care of, irrespective of what cloud you are going to deploy on. Right? In terms of identity and access management, there is a principle of zero trust, right? That essentially you should not trust anyone. That means any and all entities that are communicating with your product or your application, they have to be authenticated and authorized, right? The thing called authn or authz. That's what that means. This essentially means that you have to define the model your application, right? Who are the actors who are going to access it? What are the level of privileges that they have? And then cloud providers will give you tools to implement those identity and access management. The second part of that is encryption, right? So data encryption is really important, right? So there are different types of data encryptions, right? In transit, in rest, and there's also something called in use, right? But encryption is really important so that, I mean, in transit, if someone is eavesdropping on you, unfortunately, it has to be encrypted so that they don't see anything. At rest, they have to be encrypted that if somehow someone has access to your data, they can figure out stuff because it's encrypted, right? And in use essentially is a recent term, but that still means that while you are operating on data, it should be encrypted with the right level of IAM in place that only the right people or services or actors can infer the information that is encrypted in there, right? The third part of this is the threat monitoring and incident response. That means that the applications that you have built and deployed on cloud, you need to have an infrastructure in place that continuously scans and monitors for threats. And once a threat is detected, you actually have a way of responding to that threat, right? If that means that you have to cut off a server because it's compromised, you need to have those mechanisms built in. It can't be an afterthought because otherwise the blast radius can be huge, right? If you don't have a mechanism of responding to a threat, right? So detecting threats and responding are also really, really critical. The fourth part is data privacy and compliance, right? That also falls into, so different regulations have different localities, have different regulations and laws concerning the privacy of the data and the compliance that applies to locals, right? Again, I'll make an example of GDPR, right, or SOC. So all of these things essentially fall into what are some of the compliance mechanisms you have around your application and organization as well in general that contributes to developing these applications. And the last thing is automated security testing. I cannot stress enough how important this last part is. This goes back to the earlier secure software development lifecycle, right? So automated security testing means that in each stage of your application developing, in the CI/CD pipelines, ideally, you have all of these controls built in, right? Static application testing, then dynamic application testing, and runtime application testing. So all of these things have to be built in. So these are 5 major things that you have to take care of. I think one additional thing I would say is secure your APIs, because those are the point of entry into your applications, right? So it's really important to model the communication patterns that your application is going to exhibit and have your APIs really secure.